Anyone's got any cool ideas for any of that, I'm excited to hear it. That's a thing. Um, Now I want to move on to things that we changed in the build, in the early access build. This is your weekly rundown of features and new stuff. Um, the big thing that we fought, and here I'm gonna. All right, wait. I gotta do a thing real quick. So I'm going to. I know better than this, but I'm gonna show you guys my screen. I know I hate doing this, but before I do that, I need to take the images off my screen. They're nothing dirty. I swear to God, they're flowers. My screen has flowers on it, and I don't want to show you my ugly flowers. Um, you know what? I will show you my ugly flowers. You can look at my ugly flowers. But let me close down all these windows full of porn. I mean, work. And I want to show you a thing. Yeah, a minute. Alright, we're gonna play Last Regiment real quick. Alright. So I should be able to, unless I think this is. Yeah, there we go. See, I told you I had big flowers on my screen. So, here's Steam, right? And one of the how do I get to my game? I want to play my game. There we go. So let's play Last Regiment real quick. One of the biggest issues that we have dealt with over the last couple weeks is resolution issues. Now, you wouldn't think that resolution issues are such a big deal, but they're very, very difficult. And there's two things to think about in resolution issues. Thing one to think about is, how big is this screen? You know, is it big or is it small, right? Just if I were to zoom it up and zoom it down, right? Let's go to our resolution settings real quick. So I could change resolution from 16:9 to another version of an aspect ratio of 16:9, something that would be divisible equally by 16:9, which means I haven't changed the aspect ratio, I've just changed the size. So I've made it bigger or smaller, but everything is the same aspect ratio. But the other thing I can do is I can change the aspect ratio. This is now in a widescreen aspect ratio. I could make it in a non-widescreen aspect ratio. I believe 1024 by 768 is a non-wide aspect ratio. Now you notice nothing changed. The reason nothing changed is we are having all kinds of problems with allowing that to change without having you restart. So we have forced a restart now. I didn't want to force a restart. It's kind of lame, but now at least we don't have a whole bunch of bugs that came with change the resolution. Now you notice this version of the game is thinner from right to left, right? It's like somebody took the game and went, right? Now the question is, what happens to all the elements in the game when you go to the game, right? Well, we don't want to just squeeze them together and make everything get tall and weird. So we actually have to take elements like Olivia here, or these buttons, or these other things here, and these scoot in, and these scoot in. But then there were other elements like this background. Well, this background, if you remember from 16:9, was full screen. It was the whole screen. So those background elements, we have to just cut the edges off, right? And not show those edges anymore. So we have to go through each element of the game and ask it, what happens to you when we change resolution? Does this thing go, or does this thing go, right? Does it squeeze you together, or does it cut off the edges? There's a bunch of different things that we have to. Every single element in the game has to be designed around the idea that I'm going to figure out what to do. Now, if I were to go back to, I usually play my game in 16:9. Let's restart the game real quick. Now you'll notice some of the text and stuff looked a little bit weird. It got really small. And this is one of the problems that we were dealing with. If I were to right now click this, take a look at this text box, right? See, look how that's nice and big and easy to read, and that's nice and big and easy to read. Let's go back to that other resolution real quick. Back to 1024 by 768, right? And let's restart the game again. You know, remember that window that we just saw that had the nice big text that you could easily read, right? Now let's open up the game again, and let's look at that same window, right? Oh my God, look how tiny that is and how difficult to read that is. Now, it's actually not just tiny. Um, it, 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 uh, um, it's not just tiny, it's not the same aspect as it was before. And this is because we had a bunch of different sort of text issues and stuff like that. We spent a lot of time this week fighting with this. We have a new patch coming out. This is not the fixed patch. We have a new patch coming out in another day or two where a whole bunch of these resolution issues are fixed. And I know this doesn't seem like a big deal, but oh my God, this was so much pain. It involved dragging other programmers into the project. It involved many heated conversations. It involved Sutikno, the guy who did all the animation and AI, working on this for a very, very long time. I mean, this was an extremely painful process. Let me put this back in 16.9. By the way, Alan, you mentioned that we should have a restart game, yes, no. The problem with a restart game, yes, no. I've been told by Adrian we couldn't. I meant UI, not AI. We can't do a restart right now because once I turn this game off, my computer doesn't take commands from this game anymore. Now I can have if I want to change my resolution to 16.9 again. Notice how its text is fucked up, right? That's what we were fixing. If I want to change it to 16.9, this game needs to be restarted for changes to take effect. I can't say this will restart the game. I can say it'll shut the game down, but it can't restart the game because once I shut the game down, it doesn't know to open itself up again. That's what I've been told. If you have a better solution, Alan, I would love to hear it. But right now, I don't think we can actually restart. I think all we can do is shut the game down, which might be better. We might have a game needs to be restarted for changes to fake effect. Shut game down now. Yes. I mean, we could do that. And then we could be like, all right, it would automatically go do this work for us. That we could do. But I think the player is still going to have to go press the play button and restart it like that. I don't think we have a way to restart the game. If you know an answer better than that, Alan, I'm very eager to hear it because I don't think we have a better answer for that. I don't know if we know how to do that. Come on, game. Show. Why is my game not showing? My game should show. There it is. Okay. It takes a minute to wake up. I have a little corner of my screen that's not cool. Let me fix that. He's a demon and he's gonna be chasing after someone. There we go. Yeah, I think there's a solution with a bootloader or something like that. I know other games do this, but I don't know how they work with Steam. And what I do know is Adrian doesn't know. So someone's got to go talk Adrian through it. So Alan, technical director of the studio, that might be something you could look into for us. Because I would love to have it automatically restart. That would be cool. But right now I've been told we don't have the tools for that. So other stuff that we have changed in the game. Let me pull my list up. Campaign updates. Oh, yeah. So we've actually changed. When you go to campaign and you're playing through your campaigns, in later campaigns, you actually can choose your regiments. So let's say I want to go to the Forest of Mir and play that, which I can't do right now because I got to unlock it because I destroyed all my save games to test something. But what we do now, I don't think the Rambatoon Isles has it. I wish I could show you, but I can't because I have to unlock a bunch of levels to do it. We've got it now set, so we had to rebuild the system where when you start a level, you actually pick your regiment for that campaign level. And this was a big thing. I realized when we were playing multiplayer games that a big part of this game was building regiments. And I wanted to make sure that that part of the game showed up in the single player game. There is a part of me that said, you know what, we should start every level with the player having the regiment selected for them. But I didn't like that as an answer because I really feel that this is a big part of the game, right? Figuring out this regiment, what you want to bring, this is a big part of the game. But there were questions about how this would play out in the actual game because what do I show you over here before you start a new regiment? Now remember, when you're playing campaign, I need you to have some certain units, because those units are going to talk to you and stuff during the game, right? If in the middle of the game I'm supposed to have your pyromancer have a conversation with you, I need you to have a pyromancer in the game. So we needed to make sure that you had the pyromancer in that game, but the other positions that weren't important, you could choose what you wanted to bring and what you didn't want to bring. But one of the questions was, okay, I play a level, what do I get on the next level, right? Let's say I bring this regiment into level 4, right? And I chose most of this regiment. I decided that I was going to bring this pyromancer and this settler and this elven archers, right? So I do that. Now I get to the next level. Should it still be the same regiment? Well, problematically, what if I have other units that I need you to bring in the next level, and those units are different than the units I needed you to bring in the last level? That's a little problematic. The other thing is, if I do that, it's going to discourage the player from consistently trying or using new units that you may have unlocked in the last level. So now what we've suggested is, each time you open a new level and you open up this menu, it's going to start with a suggested regiment. So this is one regiment that might be a good regiment to bring into this level, and that allows us to showcase some of the new units. It allows us to make sure that you have the right regiment with the right required units, and we lock those required units and say, these required units, you can't take them out of your regiment, right? But all the other units, you can swap them out. You can do whatever you want, and you can play this regiment however you want. But here's at least one suggestion. The other thing it does nice for you is, for those people who really don't want to spend a lot of time building a regiment, they don't have to go through the process of dragging a bunch of people over to their regiment every single time they play a new level. They can actually just say, play next level. Oh, here's the regiment that I'm supposed to bring, and they bring that regiment in. So that's a thing that we're adjusting. There's still some more work to be done with it, but that was a big piece of feature that we stuck in. We have some new adjustments to the structures, victory points. I noticed actually when I was playing some of the two-player games that I could go into the math, but it's a lot of math. Oh shit, maybe people are interested in the math. I don't know. I don't know if people care about the math or not, but let's say we're going to start a skirmish game real quick, right? The way it determines how many victory points you need to win a game is it looks at each one of the structures in the game and says, this structure's worth 20, that's worth 20, this is worth 20, that's worth 20. So there are 2, 4, 6, 8, there's 80 victory points in the game. That's how it determines how many victory points there are. And then we say, okay, you need X percentage of those victory points to win the game. Now there's two problems here. Problem number one that we realized is these foundations didn't have any victory points associated with them, because you can't take over a foundation. You have to build something on it to make victory points, to make a building, and only buildings had victory points. The problem is, if this level had 2, 4, 6, 8 victory points on it, right, or 80 victory points, now I go build. So now the number, and we say, for instance, you need to take over 50% of those to win the game. The victory condition win is now 40 victory points. But I could go build buildings on each one of those things, and every time I built a building, that added another, I don't know, 10, 20, 30, 40. So now there's not actually 80 victory points in the game. There's now actually something like 120 victory points in the game. And I still only need 40 of them to win the game. And so you were actually getting way too many victory points way too quick. It was making the games end too quickly. So what we did to fix that is we actually gave these victory points. Now you can't get victory points for them, but when the game computes the number of victory points here, it actually says 2, 4, 6, 8. Oh, and then also 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, there's actually 120 victory points here, right? When you start the game, there's actually only buildings worth 80 victory points, but once you start building, you can build up to 120 victory points. And so now I'm doing all of my math based off of the full total that it could be, not what it is at the start of the game. That's a way better way of doing it, because now we have a much better idea of how many victory points are going to be available when people start building stuff. The other problem that we realized is that the percentage of victory points that you should get to win a game actually ought to be different based on the number of players that you have in the game. Let us for a moment assume you have 2 players in the game, and the victory points that you need to win a game is, I don't know, just for the sake of conversation, 50%. That 50% would mean the minute I take something from the other player, the minute if we start the game with 80 victory points and this guy's got 40 and this guy's got 40 because of these buildings, the minute I take something from the other guy, I actually have enough victory points to win the game. Now, obviously, because you haven't built all your buildings or taken over all the cities yet, that's not true. But at a very early point in the game, you reach a point where all of the structures have something built on them. And once all of the structures have something built on them, and you have half of them and I have half of them, we're now in a position where somebody's about to win the game. And that's quite quick. So maybe the number of victory points you should have in a 2-player game ought to be more than 50%. Now, take the same example on a 6-player game, right? 120 victory points, 6 players playing. If everybody has 1/6 of the game, if everyone has an equal portion of the victory points, we've built buildings, each of us have an equal portion of the victory points, everyone now has 20 victory points, right? To get to 50%, I am literally going to have to kill 2 enemies and take all their shit, right? At the point in the game, in a 6-player game, where 1 player has half of the shit in the game, he's probably gonna win, right? The odds of this dude not winning are really, really low. And so you may actually want to set that number of victory points at a little less than 50%. Now, obviously, we need to figure out exactly what these numbers are, but what's clear is these numbers are not going to be the same for a 2-player game and a 6-player game. Because in a 6-player game, killing 2 players entirely, taking all of their stuff, that's pretty hard to do. You're going to do that pretty late in the game. And at that point, I now have half of the armies in the game. Now, unless the other person has also killed 2 people and there's only 2 of us left, the odds are I've got a way bigger army than anyone else in the game. The odds are I'm going to snowball this game and win. And what we know about this game, or honestly any strategy game, is there's a point in the game at which everybody kind of knows you won. And after that point, the game gets to be less fun quite quickly. At the point where you know there's no coming back from the game, there's so much you don't want to keep playing because you're like, oh, what's the point, man? I could do this and I just can't win. Why am I playing? That's actually why we put in victory point wins. The idea behind the victory point win is to allow the player who's obviously going to win this game to just go ahead and win this game. That's the whole point to a victory point win. So we need to make sure that that's happening at the right time. But what's clear is that right time is going to be different for a multiplayer, for a 6-player and a 2-player game. So that's a thing we changed. We adjusted amphibious units. You can now summon amphibious units to a town, a hero, or a dock. It was a little weird because amphibious units couldn't be summoned to docks before, so you couldn't actually summon your amphibious units in the water, which was weird. We also had a weird thing where units were not allowed to transform on bridges and ports because they were on water and it was confusing to the game. We fixed that. We looked at a bunch of the multiplayer maps and made sure that in all the multiplayer maps you have a little bit more stuff at the beginning of the game, so you have at least 4 supply points, which seems to be the right number for a fun start game. At 3, you feel a little pop cap too early and it felt a little constricting. So we changed around the levels a little bit and made sure you always had at least 4 supply points at the beginning of the game. That seems to be a good number for fun gameplay. We did a bunch of other changes to the maps to move some structures into more structural locations. The other thing we realized was a lot of the maps had too many towns in them. If I go to some of these sort of bigger maps, they had, this is a weird map, they had a whole lot of towns and stuff in them, and because there were so many towns, it snowballed pretty hard. Once you're in a game that's got 4 towns in it in a 2-player game and you've taken 2 of the towns and the other guy hasn't taken a town, your victory is going to come very quickly. So we actually reduced the number of towns and replaced a lot of towns with smaller structures, barracks and parms, or even just these little foundations that you can build structures on. We'll see how that plays. Um, we have a whole bunch of other AI changes I could go into in detail, but I kind of don't want to do that because if you thought the last 15 minutes were boring, you'd be amazed how boring that is. Absolutely amazed. So that's a bunch of changes that we have made. This is the point at which in later streams I will actually start playing games and get people involved in playing games with us. I'm not going to do that today because I have this build to come out next week with a bunch of fixes and patches and changes, and I've got Tokyo Game Show this evening and Tokyo Game Show tomorrow evening and Tokyo Game Show all weekend. So I got a lot of stuff to do and I need to get some work done before that. So I am going to end the stream now. I know that in the world of streaming, a mere hour and a half stream is nothing. I get it, I know. But that's all I'm going to do for today. I want to thank everybody for coming by. Means a lot that you guys are here. It means a lot that you're being part of this whole early access thing. Hopefully we'll have some cooler stuff to show you next week. We'll have a good looking stream next week. I think I'm still here in Japan next week, so I should be streaming from Yokohama next week. I'll see everybody. Same bat time, same bat channel. Thank you very much for being here. Here's my little closing message where you can get all the information you could possibly want about whatever. It's all right there. Here's some music for you to listen to. Thank you very much.